The 10th anniversary of Red Bull Kumite just transpired over the past weekend in Paris, France, and it was incredible. Let's talk about it a little bit. You see, the Red Bull Kumite Invitational Series always invites players from all over the world, not just for their skills, but for their mix of personalities and playstyles as well, to put on the most entertaining show as possible for the spectators. And this one was special because it actually celebrates the 10th anniversary of the Red Bull Kumite Tournament Series as a whole. This event began back in 2015 in Paris, France, where the ring first went up and competitors threw down for the very first ever Red Bull Kumite. And this specific Red Bull Kumite was legendary for many reasons. Beyond just being where it all began, it featured a very important set between Tokido and Bonchan in the grand finals.
If he used Liu, I body him. If he used Sagat, anyway, I body.
And then going to the grand finals itself, Tokido had these words to say to Bonchan.
Every tournament, he gets second place. And I know, really, he want to be champion.
I'm out. Oh my god.
But I'm sorry, your opponent is Tokido.
You might know Bonchan now for being the EVO 2019 champion and for being one of the most legendary fighting game players, period, especially in the world of Street Fighter, and the most feared Sagat in the world. But prior to this moment in 2015, Bonchan was not quite considered at the echelon of a player like Tokido or Daigo. But Bonchan would go on to make history, to reset the bracket and eventually take home first place, and history was made. This is actually where Bonchan first ended up becoming a Red Bull athlete after this event as well. It really set his path forward as being a professional gamer in the world of Street Fighter, and the rest is history. So 10 years later, we are back in Paris, France, and the ring is here once again, but this time we have another layer to the story to tell. You see, Red Bull Kumite is all about the theatrics, so to amp up the stakes, we now have the underdogs versus the legends. Rob TV is the larger-than-life Battle King who is for the Team Legends, and Li Joe, the bouncer, is representing Team Underdogs here, and they want to prove that their side is the best side in the world of Street Fighter. And it makes sense because we literally have legends in the scene now. It's pretty rare in the world of esports to have players competing for as long as we have in the world of fighting games. I mean, Daigo's in this tournament. He's in his 40s. Bonchan, I think he's near his 40s as well. He won the original Red Bull Kumite 10 years ago. Now he's back as a legend. And on the side of the underdogs, we have players like Ending Walker, who I'm pretty sure cannot even legally drink. So with the theme set, we had our cast of characters invited to make this show happen. On Team Legends, we have MenaRD, Daigo Umehara, Gachikun, Big Bird, Bonchan, Xiaohai, Problem X, and Kakeru, the Capcom Cup champion. Now, if you're defining legends by age, I think MenaRD and Big Bird might be kind of stretching that definition, but they are returning Red Bull Kumite champions, so it makes sense to put them on the side of the legends. In fact, they are the ones who won the last two Street Fighter 6 Red Bull Kumites, MenaRD winning in 2024 and Big Bird winning in 2023 with his Marissa shortly after Street Fighter 6 just released. On Team Underdogs, we have some fan favorites and some more eclectic picks. We have Kilzyou representing France, Zengi Pilato after his amazing performance at Capcom Cup and UFA in there. Noah the Prodigy, the 5th place Capcom Cup finisher and the most prolific American representative right now. I don't know how long we're going to keep calling these guys underdogs, but it makes sense. He's rambunctious and young. Ending Walker, of course, he was the original Prodigy before Blas. I think he's now 18, 19 years old, still very young. Kusanagi, the UFA champion, also another French representative representing the home country. And Nyampi out of Japan, the very first woman competitor in Red Bull Kumite history, has been making waves with her Aki in Japan, is representing Team Underdogs. Now that leaves 2 spots open on Team Underdogs. That's in part because Red Bull Kumite always includes a hype LCQ. It's kind of become like a staple of the Red Bull Kumite format. But on top of that, they've also been doing this play-in tournament series. The way this works is they have 8 regional qualifiers all over the world where people play in those tournaments, and the winner of those tournaments gets flown out for an 8-man bracket to determine the other qualifier. So you have 2 tournaments on day 1 of Red Bull Kumite to figure out the last 2 spots. And in this play-in tournament, we have an eclectic cast of characters. We have Takamura qualifying out of Belgium, Kusanagi, not the one from France in the invited bracket, but Kusanagi from Mexico, who was in Capcom Cup in 2023, Mark the Shark out of South Africa, who won over Jabi M. You know, Jabi M, the guy who beat Tokido. He's become Tokido's rival, the guy who beat Tokido at Red Bull Kumite 2023 in South Africa. It's not just him doing work out there. Mark the Shark beat Jabi M to get into this position. We also have Idom representing out of USA, ZJZ out of Taiwan, Higuchi from Japan, Senior Power out of France, and Salvatore, the man who was part of the plan to eliminate Punk from Capcom Cup. He beat Punk in that Cami mirror, qualifying out of Argentina, representing Venezuela in this bracket. As his first bracket whittled down, we saw that Idom was actually having a really good day. He took a 3-0 set win over Senior Power, and then a really close 3-2 set win over Takamura to end up in winners finals up against Higuchi. And Higuchi is a very special character to me in the world of Street Fighter 6 right now, because I feel like he's been so strong for so long, but hasn't quite had like a big win under his belt to really get that clout for his name. You know, he was actually one of the point leaders in the Capcom Pro Tour World Warrior for Japan in this past season, and nearly qualified. It came down between him and Kakeru, where the winner of that last tournament, or whoever did best in that last World Warrior tournament, would actually get that Capcom Cup spot. And Kakeru ended up getting second in that tournament to Momochi, gave him the point lead, and Higuchi ended up in 4th place, so he didn't get the auto qualifier spot. So he almost changed history. Kakeru went on to win the million. Higuchi ended up just staying home for that Capcom Cup. So you know he's thirsty to get a big title under his belt, like potentially a Red Bull Kumite win.
Oh,
there it is. Perfect KO. Wow.
Very nice, Higuchi.
Heading to the loser side of this bracket, though, I was really impressed with Senior Power's run. He actually represented 3 different characters. He played Mai, Cammy, and Ryu in this tournament, and then he used Ryu in his set against Salvatore, and it was a really exciting set. I was super impressed with his Ryu gameplay, and I hope he uses more Ryu. It's more fun to watch than Mai.
He didn't die from that? That's crazy.
that was godlike though.
On to winners finals, though, we have Idom up against Higuchi, and Idom is playing his Menan, Higuchi with Guile. And on paper, probably not the best matchup for Menan, but Idom does train or fight against NuckleDu all the time in online weekly tournaments, and has definitely taken sets over NuckleDu in Street Fighter 6 in high stakes matches. So he does have the matchup experience against maybe the best guy in the world. Listen. Who's the best Guile anymore? I don't know. But after this set, Higuchi's making the case for himself, because it was a crushing 3-0 defeat for Idom. Higuchi takes it swimmingly into grand finals. And then Idom, after this, drops into the losers bracket. He goes up against Takamura to get the run back against him. And Takamura this time, man, you just cannot read what this guy does. He has the most electrifying play style in Street Fighter 6. You can never guess what he's going to do next. And Idom, I believe he gets throw looped out of the tournament. Takamura ends up taking the set 3-2 this time instead of losing 3-2. Gets his revenge over Idom and goes into the grand finals against Higuchi. But at this point, man, Higuchi is just looking unstoppable in this bracket. It's a clean 3-1 victory for Higuchi, and he smooth sails his way into the actual Red Bull Kumite bracket to play on the finals day.
No matter where he's at, and he's going to be in the cage on Sunday, representing Team Underdogs. Give it up for Higuchi, y'all.
And after the play-in concluded, we moved on to the last chance qualifier bracket, and this thing was stacked, and it reached its cap of 256 players. We had talent from all over the world in this thing looking for their chance to enter the main Red Bull Kumite event. Players like Diddy Mokov out of Brazil, Salty Kid from Belgium, Mr. Crimson from France, Hikaru out of Japan with their Aki, and of course, the second place Capcom Cup finisher, Blas from Chile. Yes, the 15-year-old prodigy, playing mostly his Ryu these days, is in this last chance qualifier as well. Now, I know a lot of people were upset that he wasn't invited into the main event already. However, you have to understand that Red Bull Kumite plans this like months in advance to get the attendees ready to go. So they even made a comment that they would have loved to have invited him formally into the bracket had they known ahead of time. So a missed opportunity there, but he has his chance to actually earn his way in through the last chance qualifier. However, that opportunity is not guaranteed, because in top 16 winners, Blas goes up against Garnet from Italy, going up against his Dalsum. Now, Blas actually does have a lot of Dalsum experience. He trains with Shaka 22 out of Argentina and has won tournament sets over him to actually end up getting into Capcom Cup in the first place. So safe to say he does know this matchup very well. But of course, Garnet out of Italy is no slouch himself. He qualified for Capcom Cup back in 2023. He's a beast with Dalsum. He made top 8 at Kings of the World this last CPT season as well in offline competition. So as we get into this matchup, how does it go down? Well, traditionally, you know, Shotos tend to not be favored against Dalsum. I think it's a lot more even in Street Fighter 6, but in past titles, Dalsum has always been a thorn in the side of Shoto players. And Garnet actually takes the first game over Blaz's Ryu, which forces Blaz to switch over to Ken. Well, Blaz ends up actually bringing it down to final game, final round with his Ken. And you see here, he actually has to make a big comeback in this situation. He ends up finding a lucky jump in and then actually baits out a missed space drill from Garnet. There's a full combo conversion to level 3, but Garnet lives with a sliver of life. And this interaction, Blaz then goes for the run overhead, which has a huge gap there. He's hoping that Garnet would just be making love to down back there. But Garnet does not do that. He wakes up with crouching medium kick into a full combo conversion into that level 3 to take the set 2-1 over Blaz. Now, I don't know if Blaz could have done maybe a slightly more optimal combo, but that was a crushing defeat for him, but he still has a chance to make it all the way through in loser side. Blaz does eventually make his way into top 8 loser side, where it's now first of 3, and he gets to go up against Salty Kid out of Belgium. The same Salty Kid back in Capcom Cup a month ago, who he didn't quite make it out of groups, but made a splash handing out his business card to everyone he defeats. And in this matchup, I gotta say, I definitely favored Blaz going into this, but things did not work out that way. After dropping 2 quick games with his Ryu Salty Kid's Kim, he ends up trying the Ken as well, but it is no good. Salty Kid defeats Blaz 3 games to 0, 6 rounds to 1, and ends up eliminating most people's favorites from the LCQ. And unfortunately, Salty Kid does end up going for his business card gimmick. He tries to hand the business card to Blaz after beating his ass a little bit. And Blaz just kind of stares at it like, I don't know what this is. I mean, there's a language barrier there. He's like 15 years old. And I think you can see here, Blaz's dad might not be too happy with the interaction and returns that business card to sender.
Crap. Hit my brother, hold that. You know what? Blaz's pops took the salt for that one.
Salty Kid is continuing his run in loser side and next goes up against Mr. Crimson and takes 2 quick games over Mr. Crimson's Dhalsim, where Crimson then does the unthinkable.
You got one? Oh. Wait. Whoa. Wow. The guy that I'm sure Mr. Crimson likes smoking is Geef, right? And now he's joining Geef.
Mr. Crimson switches from Dhalsim to Zangief. Crimson does represent pocket characters from time to time, but to go from Dhalsim to Zangief, the zoner to the grappler, it's a big switch up. So how does it work out? Well, if you thought his Dhalsim was slow and methodical and, risk adverse, his Geef is anything but that. The rest of the match that proceeds is absolute insanity. Mr. Crimson is throwing out SPD resets like constantly, and Salty Kid cannot escape it. He ends up tying the set back up 2-2. It ends up going to the final round, but Salty Kid manages to clutch it out and eliminate Mr. Crimson, but it was a really sick set in the process. Salty Kid is actually on a tear now and continues his run. He takes out Diddy Mokov in the loser's side. Diddy Mokov is originally from Brazil, a longtime Dhalsim main since Street Fighter V, was in Capcom Cup back in 2017. Now rocking Aki and did a lot of work in this bracket, but ends up being eliminated by Salty Kid here. And that sets up our grand finals with Salty Kid versus Akainu from France. Akainu has been a prolific Guile player representing France for a long time now. It's been a while since we've seen like a big win from him in Street Fighter 6, and this time he is primed and ready for the opportunity. Ends up taking the set 3-1 over Salty Kid to make it so that both the play-in qualifier and the LCQ qualifier are Guile mains. I swear the question of who's the best Guile gets more and more confusing by the day. NuckleDu and Kaba were beefing for the best Guile title. NuckleDu threw Lex's hat in the ring, but this time Lex lost in the LCQ that Akainu won with Guile, and then Higuchi wins the play-in bracket with Guile. So it's getting kind of fuzzy now. Who's the best Guile? Will the real best Guile please stand up? I don't know anymore. And with that, we're off to the main event. And at Red Bull Kumite, it's none of that first to 2 nonsense where you never know who's going to make it out on top. We're doing first to 5 single elim, baby. And while first to 5 is great, it is single elim, meaning if you get paired up with a player you just can't beat, that might be the end of the road for you right away. And of course, this event is all about the theatrics. So up first from the draw, we have MenaRD up against Nyampi. And this is interesting because MenaRD, who won last year's Red Bull Kumite, took it in dominant fashion with a lot of 5-0s and 5-1s, except for his first round opponent, which was Broski with his Aki, with Season 1 Aki, pre-buffed Aki. Broski actually managed to bring it down to a 5-4 set finish, with MenaRD taking it and going on to take the whole tournament, but things were looking a little unsure, a little shaky at the start there, and Nyampi is a super strong Aki player herself. In fact, in the previous days, in between the play-in and the LCQ, they did a little team tournament exhibition, and Nyampi was arguably the MVP for Team Japan, getting a lot of clutch wins over top players in that event. Team Japan ends up losing to Team America there, but she even scored a set win over Blas in that event, just to give you the scale of her talent.
Showing what she got, she's showing the reason why she was invited to Red Bull Kumite.
However, MenaRD back on the Blanca in this matchup starts off strong with a heavy 4-1 lead. But Nyampi does not falter in the face of impending defeat. She ends up putting 2 games on the board, 2 quick ones, 2 rounds straight each to bring it to a 4-3 situation. 1 game away from tying it up, but MenaRD has a solid finish and closes out the set to bring it to a 5-3 final score. Thus, Nyampi goes out in round 1 to MenaRD, but has nothing to be ashamed of. She is the first woman competitor in Red Bull Kumite history and put on a show for the fans.
Thank you, everyone.
And with that win, it's 1 point for the Legends. But up next, we have the Legend of Legends versus the Underdog of Underdogs. Somehow, the luck of the draw gave us Daigo versus Noah the Prodigy. 2 completely different eras, yet somehow very connected. You see, while Daigo is nearly twice the age of Noah, Noah is not the underdog I think people make him out to be, or not as unseasoned as people might expect. Noah the Prodigy is the name because he's been competing since he's been 8 years old. And the contrasts don't just end there. Daigo is revered for being a legendary competitor and being the most famous player in FGC history. He's the face of Street Fighter and fighting games. And people revere and love Daigo. Noah, on the other hand, he's a bit more controversial. It's pretty interesting how both his antics in game and his personality get the people riled up. He has an extremely aggressive play style that many people seem to not be able to wrap their minds around. They don't respect the way he wins, even though he's been doing it so consistently. At this point, you can't deny the kid is at least probably top 3 NA in terms of results. He's consistently putting up some of the best performances out of the American players and just ended the season with a 5th place finish at Capcom Cup. He just won Texas Showdown. Now he's coming into Red Bull Kumite to put on a show against Daigo. So the question is, can Daigo the Beast, who's been kind of relatively struggling in Street Fighter 6, keep up with Noah the Prodigy, who is primed and ready to play this game to its maximum rushdown potential? Well, the answer is no. The answer is no. It ends up being a 5-3 set finish, but Noah is not deterred from his play style. He is using all of the drive rush cancels. He is using all of the parry to drive rush OSs to overwhelm Daigo's offense. From every turn, it seems like Noah is actually making Daigo extremely uncomfortable in this setup and takes it in a rather dominant 5-3 set. Whenever Daigo gets a game, it feels like he's fighting for his life, and when Noah gets it, it's just another day in the park for Noah.
And Noah the Prodigy has beaten his hero.
And after the set, the Red Bull Kumite theatrics, they don't end for the losers once they are eliminated. In fact, part of the process is they have to take their own token and place it into the trophy. They have the Eiffel Tower constructed trophy, which will then hold the names of all the eliminated players before it's given to the champion at the end. Daigo gives his token to the trophy and then heads over to Z to decompress at the bar and discuss this set. And this is where we had some extremely surprising words from Daigo after his loss to Noah. Reinhardt actually comes in on Twitter with a more detailed translation about what Daigo said in his interview, and he said, "Actually, I felt that Noah's counterattack response and movement speed was really fast and hard to deal with. But, well, from this year, I will quit streaming and return to Street Fighter 6 as a sport and compete seriously once more. So with a bit of time, I like to take my revenge versus Noah." Daigo got his ass beat so hard by Noah the Prodigy and knocked him out of competitive retirement, forced him to close OBS, turn the camera off, and hit the sticks twice as hard. Is it going to be the return of Prime Daigo? Is he going to be winning events left, right, and center again? I'm not sure. I don't know. But it's funny to see that even Daigo is like, nah, man, I can't let this kid be smacking me around the stage like that. I got to get back into shape. So Noah, love him or hate him, he's doing big things for the scene. And in his post-match interview, well, not really post-match, he just grabs the mic to let people know. He mentions this on camera about his father supporting him.
I do a lot of jokes and I do a lot of antics, but I really want to give a big shout out to my dad because He sold his car so I could meet Daigo in 2011. Thank you.
So yeah, Noah gives a big shout out to his dad for selling his car for allowing him to go see Daigo, and he's tweeted about this in the past. His father supported him and got him into the fighting game community and went to great lengths to support him in this passion. And all these years later, it seems to really be paying off for Noah the Prodigy. Up next, we had Kilzyou going up against Shanghai, and a little bit of an unfortunate drawing, I feel like, because these two actually played at Capcom Cup just a month ago. Kilzyou actually is the reason why Shanghai started out in losers in Capcom Cup. Kilzyou had a really bad start to Capcom Cup and lost all of his group matches until the finals day and was mathematically eliminated at that point. Just playing for pride to not go home without a win, and he actually ended up beating Shanghai in the first to 2 set, which ended up resulting in him going out in losers and instead Juicy Joe making out in winners. So he impacted Shanghai's Capcom Cup run. But now he's here in France with the home crowd, playing with something to actually gain here, some stakes on the match. So how does it go down? Well, Kilzyou and Shanghai showed down in the My Mirror, and Kilzyou ends up taking the set 5-3 over Shanghai, eliminating the Esports World Cup champion and moving on in the bracket. Next up, we have Big Bird up against Kusanagi. Big Bird, the 2023 Red Bull Kumite South Africa champion, using Marissa back then, dropped her like a bad habit. Been playing Rashid with pretty good success, right? He had a good start to the 2024 season. He got 2nd place at Evo Vegas, won DreamHack Sweden. But since then, he's been having a little bit of a shaky performance, right? He didn't have a great Capcom Cup. He didn't end up making it out of groups. He's been kind of cursed at that tournament and has been expressing some doubt about his own performance and ability. So he's looking for a big win at this point. And Kusanagi, of course, he is the UFA champion, winning the CPT Premier in France. Back in France again, powered up by his home country, coming off a really poor performance though at Capcom Cup. I believe he had 0 wins at Capcom Cup. It was a subpar performance for his level, but he's looking to make a big splash here at Red Bull Kumite with his Ryu. And the set between Big Bird and Kusanagi is off to an explosive start after Big Bird on the final round of this game has Kusanagi in burnout, but Kusanagi is fighting his way out of the corner to survive and get back into this round with less than a throw's worth of life. A jab will do it pretty much. Big Bird here goes for the overhead into ODDP, hoping to catch him taking his turn back, drops the combo punish into level 3, does Kusanagi, gets the OD fireball pickup, juggle into the level 3, confirm with the CA. This is huge damage with Ryu, and he's going to have Big Bird in the corner, but he has a pixel left. Chip will do it though, both in burnout, dashes up, does an anti-air, and gets the trade with the stand MK and the donkey, and that's 0 game point for either player. That means it's a 0-0 situation. They actually did a breakdown after the fact. Ryu can't get a guaranteed meaty fireball after the level 3, so it was hard for Ryu to get a guaranteed chip sequence, so Big Bird ended up scrambling out and getting the draw there. Kusanagi does go on to win the next game, but from there on out, Big Bird ends up closing up the set solid with a 5-2 finish and eliminates Kusanagi and moves on in the bracket. Up next, we have another Capcom Cup run back. We're looking at Kakeru versus Zangief Bellotto. Kakeru needs no introduction, was pretty dominant in his group in Capcom Cup, only dropping a set to Tokido, but went on to win the million in rather dominant fashion. Zangief Bellotto, on the other hand, had a good performance, got a set on Tokido, made things a little hairy for him, but ended up dropping the set to Kakeru there and not making it out of groups. So how does it go in this run back? Well, Zangief Bellotto puts up a really strong fight. Zangief is not very heavy against JP. I will interject here and say I don't think it's as bad for Zangief as some people might make it out to be. As the games go on, though, Kakeru ends up going on a 2-0 lead up front. But then Zangief Bellotto fires back with 3 games straight. So in the first of 2, Kakeru wins 2-0. In the first of 3, Zangief Bellotto wins 3-2. But from that point forward, Kakeru turns it up and wins 3 straight after that to take the set to a 5-3 finish. Kakeru moves on, and Zangief Bellotto out of Brazil is eliminated. And as the luck of the draw would have it, of course, we have Problem X pulled up against Ending Walker. These are the 2 UK representatives. They have been traveling the world together for quite some time now, and they're training partners and on the same team. So a little unfortunate it had to be this way, but Problem X, a Red Bull Kumite champion in his own right, winning Red Bull Kumite 2021, my favorite Red Bull Kumite. I don't know, not biased at all for no reason, but he goes up with his N Bison against Ending Walker and ends up dropping that set 5-2. Ending Walker rocking Ryu. A lot of people expecting the Ed from him, but since the Ed nerfs, he's decided to stick with Ryu, who he thinks fits his playstyle a lot more and is looking really strong in this set. And Problem X, in the post-game interview, had this to say about what he thinks about Ending Walker's chances of taking this tournament.
Do you think Ending Walker has what it takes to take a Red Bull Kumite here in France?
I definitely do, and this is one of the reasons why I was annoyed that we had to play it, because I don't want to really show too much counter Ryu tech, because Ryu's not really that familiar right now. So, but I think he can definitely win, and I'm rooting for him to win.
Love to see that Problem X believes in his teammate and his training partner there. But moving on, we have Gachikun drawn up against Higuchi. I gotta say, I feel bad for my man Higuchi here. You see, this is another rough draw for him. He actually played Gachikun at Esports World Cup in the top 8, which was also a single elim first to 5 format. Higuchi's been having a lot of great performances, but Gachikun kind of smoked him in that Esports World Cup set 5-1. So I was feeling not too good about this drawing for him. And unfortunately, that came to fruition. While it wasn't a 5-1, this time it was a 5-2. Gachikun moves on over Higuchi, and Higuchi still not having his big break. I'm hoping for him to take a big win somewhere and stand up and say in perfect English, "I'm the best Guile," because they keep leaving him out of the conversation, despite how consistent he's been in the past year on some of the most competitive platforms available. That, of course, leaves only 2 players remaining for our round 1. We have Bonchan up against Akainu. Bonchan, the original Red Bull Kumite champion, here a decade later, returning to Paris, France to enter the ring once more to claim another title up against the French representative Akainu. And with these 2 players stepping into the ring, we have an early start from Akainu with a 2-0 lead. Coming in hot from his LCQ victory, but then Bonchan fires back, taking 4 straight games, including a double perfect before Akainu responds, but Bonchan closes it out 5-3. The OG, the legend of legends, the man who got his start on this stage, moves on in the bracket, and Akainu is eliminated. And in round 2, we have MenaRD going up against Noah the Prodigy. We almost had a MenaRD Daigo preview here. You know, MenaRD actually challenged Daigo to a long set format earlier in the year. He's looking to have a legendary set with Daigo, but Noah caused the upset, even though I don't really think Noah versus Daigo is actually an upset. I think Noah's actually favored there, but instead of Daigo, we got Noah up against MenaRD, and MenaRD was not happy about Noah denying his set versus Daigo. Takes it 5-2 in pretty dominant fashion. The Noah style was not working out. He has a few moments where he puts himself in burnout a little bit too soon, gets himself checkmated, and MenaRD is moving on to take potentially his 2nd title in a row.
Tell me, why is your Luke constantly burned out?
It's because Luke hits so weak, so you have to go into burnout. Luke is a terrible character.
Next up, Kilzyou, the final remaining French representative in this bracket, up against Big Bird. You know the crowd is behind him. He's rocking the Mai against Big Bird's Rashid, but Big Bird stays solid, takes it 5-3, and the 2 Street Fighter 6 Red Bull Kumite champions survive into the semifinals. And up next, we have what might be my favorite match of the entire tournament. The legend, the Capcom Cup champion, Kakeru, up against the underdog, as strong as he may be, Ending Walker. This matchup is special to me because I feel like against JP, a lot of people like to hate on this character because he has a lot of kind of BS zoning patterns and has a lot of unique mechanics to him, including amnesia. But I think JP represents an opportunity for the opponent to really demonstrate their mastery of the matchup and the mechanics at hand. And that's exactly what Ending Walker does in this matchup. The way he approaches in neutral, the empty jump spacing, how he structures his offense against JP and his amnesia is absolutely next level. Even here in the very first round, we can see that Ending Walker represents this interesting option against JP's portal. Just drive rush into DI and just clonks Kakeru, not expecting it. We know he sets the tone right off the bat that Ending Walker is going to be prepared for this matchup. You can just feel Ending Walker's confidence going into this match as well at the end of the 2nd game here with the double overhead to bring himself to a 2-0 lead over the Capcom Cup champion as well. And then here you can see with Ending Walker with a 3-1 lead over Kakeru, goes for the throw loops over and over, no fear against JP amnesia, into the meaty fireball with the juggle pickup, into the DI, just exuding confidence, and has a 4-1 lead over Kakeru in this set.
Ending Walker
is on absolute fire.
Kakeru fires back with 2 quick games on the board to bring it to a 4-3 situation, but now Ending Walker is here on set point. Kakeru puts himself in burnout to set up this back medium target combo to pop at level 2, and here Ending Walker has to make a decision. You see Ending Walker here, he can hold parry and absorb the physical attacks if Kakeru decides to go for it and parry the super projectiles, which will regen his drive meter and help him avoid burnout. Then he can avoid the offensive situation that way. But it is a guess because Kakeru could instead go for an immediate throw, which would grab the parry, give him a punish counter throw and a combo, and kill Ending Walker in this situation. So what does he go for? He goes for the throw tech. He ends up jumping away from the level 2 to avoid the extra hits. Jumps into the anti-air, gets the perfect parry to avoid burnout on the projectile as well. Gets offensive pressure to Kakeru. Kakeru has no more super meter. It's going to be checkmate with the DI. And that is it. Ending Walker cashes out with the combo conversion into the CA and takes the set 5-3. The young underdog eliminates the Capcom Cup legend from Red Bull Kumite.
And you can take your $1 million home. None of that matters here in the cage.
Listen to the crowd.
Keeps the dream alive for the underdog.
Wow, super impressive play from Ending Walker and doing it with Ryu against Kakeru. Remember, Kakeru defeated Blaz's Ryu to win the $1 million, and Ending Walker gets it done where Blaz was unable to do so. Amazing gameplay from Ending Walker. He moves on in the bracket. And for the final match of the quarterfinals, we have Gachikun up against Bonchan. 2 legends in the world of Street Fighter throwing down here, but as it wears on, Bonchan just begins pulling ahead with the Zakuma, ends up closing out the set and taking it 5-2, making a run to get another title under his belt 10 years later.
This could be the end. That's gonna be it. Yep. Bonchan eliminating Gachikun from the tournament.
And thus we have the final 4 for Red Bull Kumite. We have MenaRD versus Big Bird and Bonchan up against Ending Walker. And this is a very interesting top 4. On one side, we have MenaRD versus Big Bird. MenaRD is the reigning 2024 Red Bull Kumite champion. Big Bird is the 2023 Red Bull Kumite champion. We have the only 2 Street Fighter 6 Red Bull Kumite champions throwing down to make their way into grand finals. Both of them fighting to get that second title under their belts. On the other side, we have Ending Walker up against Bonchan. Bonchan is nearing his 40s, now has 2 kids. He's competing in a very different place in his life than he did 10 years ago when he originally won that Red Bull Kumite title. Ending Walker, on the other hand, is just 18 years old. Surely he has a very bright and long career ahead of him, but he's looking to earn his very first title now and is extremely hungry. With that said, these players have a lot to prove to themselves, the world, and they're all hungry for that next title. For the first match, we have MenaRD going up against Big Bird. We're going to have M. Bison versus Rashid. This set is back and forth between these 2 players, but when Big Bird ends up tying the set up 3-3, MenaRD makes the decision to switch from M. Bison over to his Blanca. It's always part of his strategy. He likes to mix up the opponents and keep them guessing with his wheelhouse of characters. And the Blanca game is close for MenaRD, but Big Bird closes it out, bringing it to a 4-3 situation. Here, MenaRD goes back to the M. Bison, but unfortunately for him, Big Bird's Rashid is too solid, ends up closing it out, and Big Bird returns to grand finals, and MenaRD is denied his 2-time back-to-back Red Bull Kumite championship.
Oh, if you would have landed, he recovered in time with the jab, and there you have it. Big Bird stays alive and moves on to the grand finale.
And now the set to determine who will go up against Big Bird in the grand finals. We have Ending Walker versus Bonchan. Ending Walker with the Ryu, Bonchan with the Akuma. The young underdog versus the seasoned legend. I can't help but think that 10 years ago, Bonchan was in this position, battling it out for the very first title at Red Bull Kumite when Ending Walker was just 8 years old. And now here they are together, throwing it down in the ring. This matchup is extremely explosive. Akuma has all the mobility options and the super strong fireball game and mix-ups, but Ryu has the damage, and Akuma is 9k health. It actually matters in this matchup. We see a lot of interactions where Ending Walker uses a lot of micro walk optimizations to fully optimize his cash out commas and absolutely liquidate Akuma's life bar. And in the end, after Bonchan actually takes it to a 3-2 set lead after losing the first 2 games and winning 3 in a row, Ending Walker turns it up 3 games straight to eliminate Bonchan from Red Bull Kumite. He will not be reclaiming the title on the decade anniversary, and Ending Walker moves on to grand finals.
Hey, here we go! Ladies and joining the Red Bull Kumite Grand Final for the first time of his career, Ending Walker!
Well, it's been such a long history. Back then, Bonchan didn't even have a sponsor, and he was looking for one. And of course, he's worked hand in hand with Red Bull since then, and his life has changed dramatically as a pro player. Even though a decade has passed, he still remembers the feeling of being here in the crowd with the roar of the fan base and can feel the power of the FGC and that support. So he thanks you, the lovely crowd, for that.
Touching interview from Bonchan, and it just really puts into perspective how we're in such a unique position that we can have legends like Bonchan competing for so long. I'm just very grateful to have these memories and to see both our seasoned pros age and continue to compete and play in the community in the game that we so passionately care about, and at the same time having the underdogs rise up and challenge them and to get new blood into the scene. It's really a beautiful thing. But that aside, it is time for the grand finals. Big Bird versus Ending Walker, a very interesting showdown for a number of reasons. You see, for Big Bird, while he's always been a super strong player in the world of Street Fighter for many, many years, and had a really strong start to the 2024 season with his DreamHack Sweden victory, earning that Esports World Cup qualification, and a second place finish at EVO, since then, I would say he hasn't lived up to his own expectations. He's been mentioning publicly how he's been doubting his own performances. He didn't have a strong showing at Esports World Cup. At Capcom Cup, again, he didn't make it out of groups, which has been, since the group format for Capcom Cup, Big Bird has qualified but failed to make it out. He's been really looking for a win to boost his own confidence in his own gameplay. And Ending Walker, you could argue, had an even more tumultuous season. He had a third place finish at EVO Vegas. He had a top 8 finish at CPT Singapore. He was all over the world traveling and competing, but had really strong performances, but not quite enough to get the Capcom Cup qualification because those were all auto qualifiers. Then back home, he failed to get the points to qualify via the auto qualifier in the UK. Lex took that, and at the regional finals, he got down to the very end and ended up losing to Broski, so ended up not in Capcom Cup at all for the 2024 season. So for the whole season, with strong performances and consistency all over the world, he didn't have much to show for it at the very end. And on top of that, the man who beat him at EVO and eliminated him and prevented him from getting his first Grand Finals appearance was Big Bird himself. This is the Losers Finals run back from EVO Vegas. And on top of that, we have an official Underdog versus Legend Grand Finals. Big Bird is pretty young, so we're stretching the title Legend here. He's a legend in his own right. I feel like Legends usually would be a bit older. He's very seasoned. But yes, it is an Underdog versus Legend Grand Finals. The script came to fruition. Thus, the Battle King and the Bouncer had to talk some smack before we got into the Grand Finals. But beyond that, there was a special presence in that Kumite arena. A demon, if you will. Out of nowhere comes Tokido to lead us into the grand finals of this event. Tokido comes in as a legend himself to speak about how if today the underdog would win, it would mark the changing of the times, ushering in a new era that even though we have the legends still among us competing today, the underdogs are shaping the future of what will be competitive Street Fighter to come. And with the stakes set, the personal history between these two players, the personal goals and aspirations and dreams of these competitors, and the future of Street Fighter with the underdogs versus legends, we have the grand finals. Big Bird going up against Ending Walker. And as the games proceed, we can see that both players came to play. They both want it bad. We get to a 3-3 tied set situation. And as this final round begins, Big Bird makes the first contact with the dry rush low conversion. He's going to set up the level 2 here. Ending Walker, how do you respond? He's going to block it out versus the enhanced mixer that's plus frames. Tries to escape, finds the back throw, tries to jump away mid-screen, but eats the tornado that Big Bird kicks out. You're going to eat it one way or the other. He gets a combo conversion corner to corner, catches the jump away towards medium, baits the wake-up DP, and that is a quick Rashid round. Big Bird takes that critical round, takes that critical game, and goes up in the set 4-3, one game away from becoming the first two-time Red Bull Kumite Street Fighter 6 champion. Big Bird finds himself at tournament point, but Walker in this round finds the low 4 drive rush cancel. He's in the corner now, low drive beater situation. Big Bird confirms into the level 2. That's going to actually put Walker in burnout. He has 1 bar super to his name, but he's in the corner. What's he going to do? He backdashes to throw, fights his way out, finds a stagger jab on the sweep attempt. Tatsu conversion to the corner. Neutral jump on the sweep to the combo to the DP. Gets the sweep confirmed again into the medium throw. He's playing perfectly in burnout. Every interaction is working his way. He wants to stay alive in this bracket. He finds the wiggle in front of Big Bird and throws a parry, and he's staying alive for one more round. Walker is still staring down the barrel of elimination point here. Big Bird pops to level 2 early in this round. He's in the corner. He gets the enhancement mixer. Walker tried to jump away. That is a no-go. You take your prescribed throws and you like it, but instead he fights back with a wake-up DP, finds a dry rush heavy conversion mid-screen. He can cash out with level 3. Big Bird knows that he's trying to avoid getting clipped with anything. Finds some space to throw some projectiles. The sweep goes unpunished, but Big Bird finds the jump over the solar plexus. Walker fighting for his life is blocking the meaties. Big Bird finds a low forward whiff punish cancel, but it's going to go into level 1. Is it going to kill? It does not. He has a pixel. He's in burnout. He has no super, but no checkmate available. Walker does not find the opening. If he had found the button into a drive rush cancel to a DI setup, it would be guaranteed, and we would be going to a final game situation. But instead, the low forward connects, and Big Bird takes the set win, denies Walker his first title for his own second title, and he becomes the only two-time Red Bull Kumite Street Fighter 6 champion, joining the likes of Fujimura of being the only two to have 2 titles in this legendary tournament series. And Walker is besides himself. He wanted it bad, but it is not his time. Today, the legends reign supreme. And with that, Big Bird is ready to claim his title, but not from anyone specifically. He requests that L.I. Joe is the one to hand him the trophy, because last Kumite, L.I. Joe, L.I. Jerk in his role as a bouncer, as Big Bird was eliminated, told him to call the better bird, aka Angry Bird, next time. But now he has a person who said, call the better bird, hand him the trophy instead, as Big Bird becomes the only Street Fighter 6 two-time Red Bull Kumite champion. And that concludes Red Bull Kumite in Paris. A decade after the first one, it returns to its home with this amazing event. And this one was special because it's not only been 10 years of Red Bull Kumite, it's been 10 years of me watching and even being able to participate in Red Bull Kumite itself. I am so fortunate to have been a small part of its story back in 2021, and I've been a mega fan of the event for so many years now. I love this Legends versus Underdogs theme because we are in a very special place in the FGC where we can still have players like Bonchan 10 years later making a deep run to fight to get the title back. Players like Daigo in their 40s still representing and cooking all over the planet. But at the same time, players like Walker, 18 years old in grand finals, and young legends like Big Bird getting titles under their belts. And then, future megastars to be like Blaz cooking as well. So we are in a very interesting time in the FGC where a lot of our players are aging out. Some of them choose to dedicate themselves to carrying the torch forward, and new legends are being born every day. So thank you to Red Bull for highlighting the community, and thank you guys for watching this video. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.